You've been designing pitches and helping founders to raise funds for over 5 years. You helped to raise over $3 billion in general with your decks.
I love working with small businesses. I love working with startups. I love seeing the ability for a small, focused organization to do what a big organization couldn't do in a much greater amount of time. My concern with startups has basically been the level of sacrifice that's needed to build and run a startup.
Yes, sir. Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Yourself podcast, the podcast on expressing our true selves. Today my guest is Sam Eisenberg. He's a co-founder of DesignForDecks and Exponential. Thank you for joining me, Sam.
Thank you for having me, Sergey. It's great to be speaking again.
Yeah, again, we had the conversation about 2 years ago, and it was so eye-opening that I figured that I'd want to have Sam on my show again. And I want to start it off by just simply reminding people what you do, or what are your main expertise as far as DesignForDecks go and as far as Exponential goes.
Sure. So at DesignForDecks, we help early stage founders raise capital from VCs, angels, and the like. Our primary focus is on helping them improve their pitch and their pitch deck materials. We also work very closely with quite a few VCs who raise funds from their LPs and investors. So that's what we do at DesignForDecks. We're a boutique firm. We work with a very small group of clients, and we've been enjoying doing this for over 5 years now. At Exponential, we're an early stage startup that helps senior care, nursing homes, home health, hospices increase their census. So I don't want to get too deep into the U.S. System at this very moment, but essentially we help them go through these huge packets that are extremely difficult to understand. Is a patient a good fit for their home or not? And very quickly make a decision based on their rules and financial information and so on and so forth. And that's where we're at.
I want to ask you the question that's pretty obvious right now. You've been designing pitches and helping founders to raise funds for over 5 years, and I see it says that you helped to raise over $3 billion in general with your decks. As we're now seeing this exponential rise of AI, can you tell me if designing decks is still of great demand, or AI is becoming a problem?
It's a great question. We definitely would not view AI as a problem. We encourage the use of AI wherever it's going to be helpful in the process. I've been very on top of the AI deck design tools from the first day they came out. I've tried and tested dozens of them, from copy assistants to design assistants to everything in between. There are a few really interesting tools in the space. So for those who are building pitch decks at home, pitch.com is a great platform, and they do have some AI tools. There's another tool called Gamma.app, which is good for helping to structure, I would say, more basic style presentations, maybe something you use internally. I have used it a lot. I do enjoy the tool, but it's not on the level of, custom design or very high quality design you'd need to tell your very specific story. Mm-hmm. That being said, we do expect that the tools will continue to evolve. We personally design everything inside of Figma. Figma's AI tools are very limited right now. We know they are investing there. And as Figma gives us more options, we'll continue utilizing those, and we'll continue testing additional tools. And if we reach a point where we say, hey, AI is producing design on the level that we do and we need to close shop, we'll be very happy to reach that day. When founders can tell their story and present their story and design a beautiful pitch deck without human, that would be amazing. At the same time, AI also presents a really unique opportunity, which is it's really easy to create a pitch deck today. Really, really easy. What that means is that there's a much greater quantity of decks circulating. And what that means is it's also harder to cut through the noise. So the additional element of really investing, putting the human side into the story that you're telling, of using really high quality design in your deck, is actually an additional advantage, at least for the time being.
You see, with video production, my business, we also don't see AI as a threat. We see it as an opportunity. And as someone pointed out so beautifully, that AI isn't a tool, it's a skill, right? So when you can work with it and not try to fight it, it will only complement the outcome. So I'm 100% with you on this. With this company, DesignForDecks, you started working as a result of a pretty much complete surprise. As far as I remember, one of your friends. Can you tell the story briefly? How you got involved with the DesignForDecks?
Wow. The long and the short version is that my partner and friend, Eitan Efrati, initially engaged with me to help him build a course. Throughout that process, while I was helping him build the course, he then met Jack Zerby, our partner at DesignForDecks, and he said, "Hey, I have this, Sam, who has a lot of experience building courses. Would you be interested in helping you build a course on how to design decks?" Now, the background for that is Jack had raised a lot of capital himself. Had helped quite a few early stage founders design decks, and he hated doing it. He was a world-class designer, but he didn't yet have a process around it. So he said, "I'll teach it. I'd rather teach it to people so people can benefit from this at scale." So we built a course and we started selling it. And then from the course, we started getting this demand from our students. "Hey, can you help us design decks?" And we had, first one came in and he offered a very, substantial sum of money for us to do it. And we said, "Jack, we have some ideas for how we can improve this process. Will you give it a go?" And he said, "We've been partnered. We enjoy working with one another. Let's give it a go." So we tried one deck that way and then a second deck that way. And both times the process was far from perfect. It still isn't perfect, but it was vastly improved on what he had done himself. So at that stage, Jack basically said, "All right, let's do it. Let's open the business." And 5 years later, that's where we are.
So this is so fascinating because you started the business out of the pretty much necessity, out of the fact that the market wanted you to help, right? So you already found your first customers before you even started the business. As you are working with the multitude of startup founders, what are the advice that you give to founders on how to find a good business idea?
We're not usually engaging with founders and telling them what idea they should or shouldn't build. Usually at the point at which they're engaging us, they already have an idea that they're planning on building.
Okay.
I'm never, unless I'm explicitly asked, I would never tell a founder your idea is bad. Naturally, I have encountered, a few decks that have come my way where I just said, "Hey, this is not going to work." I won't say it to a founder. At the same time, for our main service, which is, the full end-to-end designing their deck, I won't take a client if I believe they have a 0% chance of succeeding. So at that point, I'll say, "Hey, thanks for reaching out. Here are some resources that can help you. Here's what I'd recommend." Give them, a little bit of value and let them continue on their way. Not because I don't think anyone should be telling them, this is not a great idea, but I just don't think that's my role. I'm a service provider. They reached out to me for help with a specific item. I try to stay in my lane to the extent possible.
Your own story, you told me the story where at some point in your life, you made a decision that the life of a founder who have attracting foreign capital or just attracting capital is not the life for you. And this idea has always, been really close to my heart because I've actually gone through the similar path. So as we're talking about, startup investments and having investors on board, can you briefly point out what are the things that always scared you, in working with investors and having a board of directors or a lot of cash, and what actually entices you to being involved with more of a small business entity? Or maybe that's not the case anymore. Maybe you can correct me if your vision has changed over these 2 years.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And naturally, my vision and my preferences do evolve over time, both based on life circumstances and based on perspective. I love working with small businesses. I love working with startups. I love seeing the ability for a small, focused organization to do what a big organization couldn't do in a much greater amount of time. So that I really do enjoy that side of it. My concern with startups has basically been the level of sacrifice that's needed to build and run a startup.
Yes, sir.
And to a large extent, I applaud founders. I support founders. I help founders. But at the same time, I said, I have a wife. I have kids. I have things working pretty well for me, and I'm just not willing to sacrifice that to go all in on a startup. At the same time, over the past 2 years, I have deeply engaged with 2 startups, currently Exponential. And what I would say is there's a few different elements there. One is I still am pulled in to ideas that I love. I'm pulled into companies that I love. So even if I say, hey, on paper, this isn't what I would want, when I see an idea and a team that excites me, I'm there. The second thing is going to be, because I've been blessed of working with a lot of very successful startups and less successful startups as well, I have a certain perspective, and I can't say that I know with 100% or even 90% confidence who will and who won't succeed. But at the same time, I've learned a lot about what it does take to raise capital, what it does take to succeed as a founder, what it takes to build a healthy culture. And I wouldn't consider myself an expert in that per se, but I do have a pretty good sense for what those are. So when a startup comes and I feel that, hey, they meet those criteria, this is a successful startup, I'm much more likely to engage them in a conversation. And I've had quite a few of those conversations. For some, I determined it wasn't the right fit. For some, they determined. For some, we determined. And then sometimes you just find the right fit. So that was that. The second thing is that there's always exceptions to the rule. And in this specific place in Exponential, one of the things that drew me there was I had a very close friend who was working there a long time. He told me a lot about the culture. I saw that much of the team was also, had families and were able to understand. The team was also remote first. So a lot of the challenges that you might deal with, or I shouldn't say challenges, a lot of the sacrifices that you all have to make, we still do have to work extremely hard, but there's a much greater understanding of my position in life and what would and wouldn't be possible given that where I am currently, as well the advantages of being in that position, which is something that's not always obvious to, young startup founders.
Wow, this is so cool. It's almost if we want the founder to be a family man because he would understand that. And, there's actually, in my experience, people who have families are really, really responsible, mature people men who are fathers, by definition, are responsible, right? And mature because they have families to feed. Maybe they cannot work late hours, but they know how to make the job done.
I've heard a lot of arguments made one way or another. I don't know if I agree as a general rule that fathers are responsible. There's plenty of irresponsible fathers. I don't know if, sometimes it doesn't matter about the general rule, but sometimes you can look at an individual and say, based on their circumstances, there's a certain advantage. And there's an advantage here of, people will talk about the ability to properly manage your time better. But there's a whole list of other items that go along with that. And when you could find the right organization that can benefit from those, then, obviously that's something that's worth highlighting.
You told me that one of your main takeaways from, last years of your life is that you have to say no to certain opportunities. Can you give us some examples where you said no to something that was really enticing, and why? And what are some lessons learned from these encounters?
Yeah. So, one obvious example will be what we had just discussed.
Yes.
Many early stage startups where I met the founder and I said, wow, this person, has a lot to offer. They're extremely driven. They have very strong domain expertise. They know how to lead. They know how to bring people in. And over, I keep reminding myself, Sam, you said no to the last 5 startups for the same reason. This is not something that my life wants or will allow at this moment in time.
And they wanted you to be involved with the operational business and everything.
Yeah, obviously, as a service provider, that's something I would allow. But businesses that tried pulling me in to be in a very deep engagement, whether it's a co-founder or is a very, very significant engagement that would require that same level of sacrifice. Even when they told me that's not the case, like, oh, we just need you to help cover this one area. And I'm like, that's not how startups work. You have to care. If you have to care about the startup, you have to be there to lift up the team. You have to be there to help anywhere you can. And roles are not static; they're quite dynamic. So that's one example. Another example is I did have an opportunity with a reputable private equity firm, and the same consideration was I actually didn't want that. On one level, it was very exciting to me, and then on the other hand, I just said, I don't want that. I love working with small businesses where I can make a lot of impact. I love working with very close teams. I love working with, places that respect me for my talents and for my abilities. And I have to worry less about red tape and more about where I can make more impact.
Is this something that you understand about yourself more and more as you are faced with these challenging choices? And has this understanding of yourself been consistent?
The understanding has definitely not been consistent, and I'm not sure that it will remain consistent either. What I do know is that what I have learned over time is that as I've been blessed to have many opportunities presented to me, I do need to be careful about the ones I say yes to and the ones that I say no to. My tendency is to say yes to things. I was given a lot of opportunities, and this is actually a great example. You invited me onto your podcast, and over the past few years, I've been saying no to practically every single one. But I enjoyed meeting you 2 years ago, and I said, oh, I'd love to meet Sergey again. So I came onto this one. And that's an example of an opportunity where in the past I would have said, hey, it's just a half hour, it's just an hour, or just say yes. So I still do try to always evaluate each thing that comes in very quickly. Is this something where I belong? Is this something where I can help? And is this something within my capacity and my ability to give it? So that's something that I've definitely learned. In terms of the exact frameworks for when I will say yes or say no, or determine if it's something looking further into, I do try to relate to the principles, but I wouldn't say that they're consistent or will remain consistent.
You said that you have a pretty good sense of what it takes to make a successful company. Maybe I'm rephrasing, but you kind of said that you've noticed some patterns. I believe. Would you mind sharing patterns for, first, a company that can become successful, and maybe you can define successful because it's a pretty broad term. And second part of this question, the patterns for making for having great, healthy internal culture.
Yeah. So I would just put a small reservation on that I'm referring specifically to startups and innovators as opposed to general businesses. If someone wants to say, hey, I'm going to start a plumbing business, if they're a great plumber, and they can build a business word to mouth, they can grow a very successful business without me being able to evaluate if they are a good or a bad plumber or whatever else is there. So I'm speaking specifically about startup culture. Now, one thing that I've found to be extremely important is a highly talented technical team. And this is something where it's not me. Many big investors will say it, and over time I've found it to be true, where at the end of the day, the company is going to pivot. A company is going to have to make adjustments. A company is going to get user feedback. A company is going to deal with new technical or legal or, whatever challenges might arise. And having a technical team that's adept enough to be able to actually adapt to those and solve those and beat the competition is going to be really, really, really critical. So that's definitely going to be one piece that I've learned. The second one is going to be, I love to see a founder with a track record. Now, for some people, a track record will mean multiple exits. Obviously, that would be a very good indicator of success. But I'm actually referring to a professional track record, someone who's shown that they can actually, build teams and produce results. And I don't just mean titles. If someone had a big title at a big company, it's not always reflective of how much they've delivered. But you could actually look at an individual and say, hey, what are their actual achievements that they've had, that they're credited for? And that exists as well.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of culture, it's the ability to be completely transparent. And that starts from step one. So I tend to do this on very early conversations where I'll flag something that maybe not be my place. So, one company I met with, I told them I didn't like their name and I told them why. And I wanted to see how did they react to that.
You were playing devil's advocate. That's it.
No, I wasn't playing devil's advocate. I truthfully didn't like it.
Oh, you didn't?
And if you say that to a company, first of all, for many companies like that, I'd be like, wow, this person, stepped where they shouldn't have. Let's remove them from the process. Let's not discuss with them further. But additionally, just the idea that you see how they react to it. So I'm not just going to say, I don't like something. I'm going to explain why, right? So I think, they'll tell me about what their company does, what about their idea. And I'll tell them, hey, what about this? I'll bring up a challenge or a concern. And then seeing how they relate to that, as in like, oh, don't worry, you'll understand it when you're here. That doesn't work for me. If they're willing to communicate their why that's not an issue or why that is an issue, or, hey, yes, we're aware of that issue and we need help solving it. To me, that's a very good indicator that they're actually going to have a culture of communication and not keeping people in these small little boxes. Okay. Yes. And then the next one will be to speak to existing people working with them. So in a small team, you're only going to have one or two people. So that might not be a big sample size. But if they have other employees you can speak to, if they have clients or service providers that work with them, anyone that works with them, you can speak to them and say right away, hey, how is it working with them? And if people say, I hate working with them, then I know as a partner or an employee or a consultant, whatever it's going to be, I would hate it probably just as much as they do.
Yeah. I'm reading the book about Netflix. Maybe it's already pretty old, but still they talk about less protocols, less rules, more freedom, more accountability from upside down, all the way down. And I sense that that's something that you can side with, right? This type of kind of culture. So how do we nurture the culture where people want to take responsibility, who want to come up with creative solutions? How do we do that as leaders?
I think it's a good question. I would be a little bit less focused on how do we nurture the people who have great ideas. I think people who have great ideas might be the type of people who have great ideas. To me, it's more a matter of how do you build a team around that? So especially at the early stage, you may not have a lot you can offer, right? Your cash, you can't compete with the biggest players. Equity, is exciting to some people, but you're also somewhat limited because you can't give up all your equity to employees. And you also, a lot of people may not value that. So it's how do you build a team when you have less resources than many bigger and established players? And you need A players, because if you don't have A players, you won't succeed, just like the vast majority of startups out there. One barometer that I use, and it's not something that's very easy to measure, is I only hire people who care. My first concern is not how talented is someone, not how many years of experience do they have. They have to really care. And that's a non-negotiable. I will not hire anyone who I don't think actually cares about the success of the company and of the product. That's been proven to be extremely, extremely valuable. And you
cannot buy their interests. You cannot motivate them to care. They should just care, right? That just
you can motivate people to work harder, but you can motivate people to do a lot of different things, to hit certain milestones. But on a regular basis, the fact that I know that if something goes wrong on a weekend or when I'm offline or when I'm away, and someone on my team will on their own, I've never asked them to do it, will get up and, go ahead and answer that email, move it forward, escalate it to development, whatever they need to do. That's something that's happening on a pretty regular basis. And I've actually not included it, not in their contract, not in their expectations, not in what I expect of them. Actually, the opposite is true. I would say for all of my current team members, colleagues, people who report to me, I actually have to ask them to take breaks more than they currently are. I'll say hey, you're going away to a music festival with your girlfriend. Like, please don't answer me while you're there. And they still do. So that's proven to be a really important consideration. And it's been extremely helpful as well. So even if I were comparing two applicants head to head and one had a much greater level of experience, I would always choose the one who cares over that one, assuming, of course, that, that they're qualified to do the role and that I trust they can do it well.
Wow, this is so interesting. I want to have only people who care, but I think we always have this proportion of A players, probably the ones who care the most, and then we have like other employees who might not burn a midnight oil, but because we have the A players, the B players always also perform well. So they have someone who they can look up to. So we need these leaders inside as well.
We try to strongly avoid B players. So
but can you only have A players? Won't
yeah. Yeah, I think that an A player, again, there's probably different definitions of it, but for me, it's someone who can excel at what I need them to excel at. So I can look at someone and say, hey, this person is really good at A, B, and C, and really not good at D, E, and F. So what I want to do is confine them to A, B, and C to the extent possible. Okay. And we do that all the time. So you can only do that if you have flexible roles. If every role is written in stone and I need this person to be good at every single thing I listed in the job description, then you're going to end up having to either spend a lot on A players or compromise and go with B players. But what we do is anytime I have a published position or an unpublished position, I'm always going to look at the individual there and I'll say, wow, this person cares. This person is smart and talented. This person's really good at, one or two of the skills or one or two of the tasks that are going to be very important to me. They're less good at being great. Let's keep them off of that task and keep them where we need them to be really good. And of course, there's the possibility of a learning curve, but sometimes, a learning curve is not the issue. It's a character attribute or something about that individual that will make them probably not so good at that other role.
But what you're saying is true under the condition when you say, let's put them here. It's speaking of placing the right people on the bus, but then there's an extension of this concept that not only we should have the right people on the bus, we kind of want them to sit in the places where they want to sit, right? So what if, and this is coming from my real business experience. For example, I have a girl who's really great communicator. She would make an amazing project manager, account manager, but she wants to be a video editor, Sam. So how do we walk this line?
Yeah, if it's not, if she's not qualified to be a video editor, she's not qualified to be a video editor, and that's just okay,
But we cannot make people to do what they're good at, or at certain point they will fall in love with what they do. What's your point here?
No, not really. I think that when you're filling a role, there's an infinite number of candidates for that role. Okay, So you're right now saying I must hire this person. And I'm saying, no, you don't need to hire that person. If that person is great, if she's great, you think she's a great communicator and she's someone you enjoy working with, then keep her very close and keep up to date and see when you might have something that fits for her. But to put her into something that she's clearly not going to do a great job at, no, I wouldn't do that under any circumstance.
Shooting myself in the foot. Okay, cool. Well, the name of the podcast is Be Yourself. And I see you as a person who actually sticks to his values and not compromising them, saying no to even glamorous opportunities, but those who would not let you live your life and be happy. What is authenticity for you, Sam? And how do you think? How important is authenticity, you think, for you and for your colleagues in business?
It's a good question. Again, not something that's easily defined or quantified, but I only like working with people who I believe are authentic, at least authentic in their communications with me, right? So there are people who have a tendency to be
dishonest, and you want them to be honest, yeah.
Yeah, so honesty is an obvious one, but I think it goes a little bit further than that. Like I actually want to I want to always understand what's actually happening. So I appreciate people who can take accountability for the good and for the bad of what they've done, or what actions they've taken or anything they've taken ownership of. And I appreciate people who are authentic, who are real human beings, who I can work with as human beings on a day-to-day basis, day in, day out. And I appreciate that. And if I feel someone's not being authentic with me, then naturally I wouldn't really want to work with that individual.
What's your take on creativity and the limits that businesses sort of impose on creative people?
It's a good question. I always tell people I'm not creative. And then they always say, what do you mean? You are creative. Look at the businesses you've done and projects. Like I've had this conversation with many people that I'm very close to. And I still don't consider myself creative. Like when you're looking at the traditional sense of creativity and art and figuring out how to like build things, I am a disaster. I am very, very non-creative.
Well, it's not. It means you're not artistic, but you're still creative in other shape or form.
Right. That's what people have communicated to me as well. But I think when you say that a business stifles creativity, to me, again, it all comes down to communication. If someone is comfortable to bring something up and to suggest a better process and to suggest where I'm doing something not as well as I should be doing it. Hey, I joined the Zoom call that you just did with the prospect. Maybe you shouldn't say that. Those are things that are going to be really critical to the improvement of the company. Now, I don't know, again, if that's strictly creativity, but the idea here is if you have a culture where people feel comfortable communicating, feel comfortable giving helpful feedback, even if it's critical and even if it's the people who are supposedly, much higher on the totem pole than they are, then that will allow people to also be creative in their own processes and the way they do things and improving things for your company.
I think we're going to wrap up. I have a few questions left. The first one that I'm thinking of right now is seeing your experience, trying things out, understanding what works, what not. People who maybe you change your opinion about, or some topics that you change your opinion on. Is there a thing that you think, is there an infinite game in business? I mean, do you think that business should always strive to kind of live forever? Or do you think it's totally fine in our day and age to kind of understand that the game is finite with ever changing world, especially right now, and without adaptability and always, seeing what's happening, we're kind of doomed as entrepreneurs, for example?
I'm not sure I have a fully structured answer to your question, but I would say that a business does not have to exist forever. And I don't even think that a business has to be built with the intention to exist forever. A business is built to solve a need that exists. Oh. If I'm solving a need, great. And if I reach a point where that I'm no longer solving that need, then I can either adapt, shut down the business, or move elsewhere. Now, like I said earlier, if there were to now be a pitch deck tool that can produce, custom, really high quality pitch decks and we would not be necessary anymore, I would recommend people use that tool and not use us. And I would have no qualms about it. If we had to shut down DesignForDecks in 2 or 3 or 4 years because that's where the technology allowed that, I would accept that wholeheartedly. At the same time, a business owner has obligations. So as long as the business owner is meeting their obligations and they say, great, we served all our clients, we did everything that we've committed to, and now, we no longer feel excited about this business. We no longer feel this business has room to grow. We no longer feel this business is relevant in today's age. They can, of course, make that decision where, hey, let us adapt or try something new. Or, hey, let us sell or pass on this business to someone who cares. Or, hey, let us shut down the business. Whatever decision they're going to be made, a business owner also has obligations to their employees and to their stakeholders. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, if that decision is being made, it should be done with consideration to the people who they committed to you, you committed to them. And I don't mean strictly on a legal level. Yes, of course, you have to give your notice and pay final salaries and everything else. But every individual that works in your organization is a human being, and they have their own responsibilities and their families and everything else. And a business has to take that. That is your only obligation, to take into account, am I meeting all my client needs? Am I doing right by my stakeholders and my employees? If the answer is yes, then any decision that you make is okay.
I kind of envy that you say that you can walk away from Design for Decks just like that. I mean, it requires a certain state of mind to do that. So I think you're comfortable because you know that you're at peace. And I think that you know that you will find something else. I think what you do here is that you translate confidence that no matter what, you'll be all right and you'll adapt. Am I getting this right? Or why is you saying it so?
Yeah, I think that, I am confident that the right opportunity will present itself. And I mean, I'm saying that, based on my experience. I've had a few really nice opportunities that went sour. I've had the ups and downs, just like every single entrepreneur out there. But at the end of the day, I know that if you're willing to do good by people, if you're willing to work hard, if you have a set of skills that people find valuable and you put in the effort, you will find the right opportunity. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, like Design for Decks was never built to be a business. This was
yes, good point.
Jack Zerby saying, hey, my parents are teachers. I love that concept of teaching. I don't want to be designing decks. Can you help me make a course? So it was only meant to be this, short-term engagement. And I view many different things that way. Many things that, people say, why do you call them? I call Design for Decks a project more than I call it a business, even though it's definitely a business. So to me, it's a project. It's me investing my time into helping, combined talents of myself and Eitan and Jack and Mustafa and other people we work with to produce something that's helpful to clients. But it's a project. So a project can continue indefinitely. A project can end. A project can evolve, and that's really where I'm at. So I view many of my engagements that way, where they're projects more than I would call it a project more than I call it, a business in a sense.
A business, yeah.
It's not a strict definition. It's just more a perspective. So
I understand that. I totally understand. I think wording is responsible a lot for how we view the world, and the words that we choose actually makes a big difference. Any last message, for people who are still struggling with finding something that they want to get up and do every day?
People who are still struggling to get up and
to find something that will get them out of bed, and happily do every day.
First of all, they're going to have to get out of bed and do it.
Oh,
right?
So there's first get out of bed.
You have to get out of bed and do. You have to get out of bed and speak to people. You have to get out of bed and learn about yourself. If you say, I want to find that job where I'm always happy 100% of the time and has no stress and this and that, it doesn't exist, right? Every business, every project, every job carries with it difficult times and challenges, and that's just part of the process. But you have to go ahead and do it. So if something looks positive on an overall, it meets most of what I'm looking for. I'm excited about what this organization is doing. I'm excited about the product this company is building. I'm excited to work with this mentor who, this team leader who I think could be a great mentor to me. Then look at the positive and go ahead and plug in and work hard and give it your 1 or 2 years. And it's not forever. You committed to something for a limited amount of time. You'll do it. And if it keeps serving you, keep doing it. And if it doesn't, at some point you can say, great, let me build a business on the side. Let me move over to a new job. You're not, there's sometimes this tendency where people will follow influencers on social media, on LinkedIn, wherever else, and they're reading it and they're saying, hey, this person says that, you should definitely start your own business. If you're working for someone, you're basically underselling yourself. Yeah. And this one says you should, and everyone has their own perspective, but they're just one of 1,000 different perspectives, and none of them are specifically true for you. So for you, it's, you got to put in the work, you got to work hard, you got to find the things that, that excite you on a general level, broadly, even if they're not perfect. And hopefully I wish everyone that they should find the opportunity that they're excited about and can have a lot of growth from on a personal and economic level.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. That was gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sergey. It's good speaking. I hope our next conversation won't be in 2 years.
You're looking for a quality video production provider? look no further. My name is Sergey and I own Beverly Production. We are a video production agency from Ukraine. You know, we help entrepreneurs to create credible online, offline podcasts and clips that drive interest, you know, to promote your podcast. As a podcaster myself, I early realized that there are not that many podcasts that put an emphasis on quality and creativity, you know, just making your videos look really, really cool. That's why we mix our videos up with different visual aids, sound effects, flashy transitions. We do dynamic switching and other cool creative things that just set apart your podcast from your competition. You can check our samples on the website, and we also help people to post the videos. So we take over YouTube management, and we can also run TikTok and LinkedIn for you. So if you're interested in something of this kind, don't hesitate to book a call with me. The contacts are available on the website. Thanks a lot.